The glass office smelled of money and power, polished wood, cold air conditioning, and quiet arrogance. Amara's hand froze on the door handle as her eyes locked onto the scene before her. A stranger sat where her husband once sat, lounging in the executive chair like it had always belonged to her. The woman smiled slowly, confidently, like someone who had already won. Before Amara could speak, the woman crossed her legs and said casually, "You must be the wife." That single moment, sharp, humiliating, and unreal, would soon dismantle a global empire, rewrite the meaning of ownership, and turn a forgotten supporter into the sole ruler of everything that was built in silence. But before we unravel how a quiet woman lost a marriage and gained an empire, if you love powerful African stories of betrayal, sacrifice, and poetic justice, like this story, subscribe to the channel and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Long before glass towers, private jets, and international awards, there was a tiny one-room apartment in Surulere, Lagos. The paint on the walls peeled like old scars, and the ceiling fan squeaked every time it turned. That was where Amara Bello and her husband, Colonel Bello, began their journey. Colonel was broke, completely broke. Not the kind of broke that still has connections or family money waiting in the background. This was the kind of broke where his phone rang more for debt than for opportunity. Business ideas filled his notebooks, but his pockets were empty. Banks rejected him. Friends avoided him. Even relatives whispered that Amara had married a dreamer who would never rise. But Amara never flinched. Every morning, she woke before dawn, tied her headscarf neatly, and prepared for work. She worked 2 jobs, one as an administrative assistant during the day and another selling fabrics in the evenings. Her hands were always busy, her mind always calculating. One night, Colonel sat on the edge of their bed, shoulders slumped, staring at a rejection email on his cracked laptop. "They said no again," he muttered. "That's the 5th bank this month." Amara placed a bowl of rice in front of him and sat beside him. "Eat first," he scoffed. "How can I eat when I'm failing you?" She turned to him calmly. "You are not failing me. You are building. And building takes time." Colonel looked up, eyes red. "But what if I never make it? What if all these ideas are just noise?" Amara reached for his hand. "Then we adjust. But we don't give up. I married your vision, Colonel, not your bank account." When creditors came knocking, it was Amara who answered the door. When suppliers demanded payment, it was Amara who negotiated extensions. She sold her jewelry, first the bangles, then the earrings, and finally the gold necklace her mother gave her on her wedding day. Colonel noticed one evening, "Where is your necklace?" She smiled lightly. "Safe." It wasn't safe. It was sold to keep his dream alive. When Colonel talked endlessly about launching a consulting firm that would later evolve into Bello Global Industries, Amara listened like it was the most important lecture in the world. She asked questions. She took notes. She even corrected his financial projections. "This margin is too optimistic," she said one night, pointing at his paper. "Start smaller. Survive first. Then expand." "You really believe in this?" he asked. "I believe in you," she replied. With her savings, Amara paid for the company registration. She funded the first office, a cramped space above a printing shop. She guaranteed loans with her own name because no bank trusted Colonel yet. When deals fell through, she didn't shout. She adjusted the budget. Slowly, painfully, Bello Global Industries began to breathe. The first breakthrough came when Colonel secured a small international logistics contract. He burst into the apartment, waving the signed documents like a victory flag. "Amara, they said yes. They actually said yes." She laughed, jumping up to hug him. "I told you, this is just the beginning." As months turned into years, the company grew. One contract became 3. 3 became 10. Bello Global Industries expanded beyond Nigeria, reaching Ghana, Kenya, and later parts of Europe. Colonel became a familiar face at conferences, dressed in tailored suits, shaking hands with powerful people. Behind the scenes, Amara remained the anchor. She didn't attend flashy events. She didn't sit in front of cameras. Instead, she balanced accounts late into the night, reviewed contracts, and quietly redirected profits into smart investments. "Why don't you come to the launch dinner with me?" Cunnel asked once. She smiled. Someone has to keep the engine running. He kissed her forehead. I couldn't have done this without you. And in those days, he meant it. Bello Global Industries transformed into a multinational brand. Offices across continents, employees numbering in the thousands, revenue climbing into figures Cunnel once feared to imagine. Newspapers praised Cunnel as a visionary. Interviews labeled him a self-made man. Each time Amara read those words, she paused, but said nothing. At home, life improved. The one-room apartment became a duplex. The duplex became a mansion. Their daughter, Xena, grew up surrounded by comfort, but Amara made sure she understood discipline. Wealth is a tool, Amara told her gently, not an identity. At board meetings, Cunnel spoke confidently, unaware that many of the financial structures holding the company upright had been designed by Amara's quiet calculations. She never demanded credit. She believed partnership meant shared victory, not public applause. One evening, as they sat on their balcony overlooking city lights, Cunnel sighed contentedly. Can you imagine where we started? Amara nodded. I remember every step. He laughed. We've come so far. Yes, she said softly. We have. What Cunnel didn't realize, what he would later learn the hard way, was that Bello Global Industries wasn't just built on ambition and opportunity. It was built on sacrifice, on trust, on a woman who chose to stand behind him so he could stand tall before the world. And a throne built by one person's hands is never as simple to take as it seems. Success did not arrive quietly. It came with cameras, applause, magazine covers, and rooms that fell silent when Cunnel Bello walked in. And slowly, almost politely at first, it began to change him. At the headquarters of Bello Global Industries, Cunnel's name was etched in glass at the entrance. Employees whispered it with admiration. Journalists repeated it with reverence. Self-made, they called him. Visionary, a man who rose from nothing. Cunnel started believing every word. At first, the shift was subtle. He spent longer hours at the office, not because the work demanded it, but because he enjoyed the way people looked at him there. The respect, the fear, the admiration. At home, Amara noticed the change in the way he spoke. Shorter sentences, distracted nods, impatience where warmth once lived. One night, Amara tried to discuss a new investment strategy. If we move part of the profits into infrastructure now, she said calmly, spreading documents on the dining table, we can protect the company from... Cunnel waved a hand dismissively without looking. My board is already handling that. Amara paused. Your board? Yes, he replied, still scrolling on his phone. These things are bigger now. You wouldn't understand how complex it's become. The words hung in the air. She studied him carefully. I helped design the financial framework that... Cunnel finally looked up, his tone sharp. Amara, that was then. This is now. Let's not live in the past. She said nothing after that. She simply gathered the papers and returned them to her folder. At work, Cunnel's story grew larger than life. Interviews erased Amara completely. I had nothing but grit, Cunnel said into a microphone once, smiling confidently. I trusted myself when no one else did. Amara watched the interview later that evening, sitting quietly in the living room. Xena was asleep upstairs. The house was silent except for Cunnel's voice praising his own resilience. When the interview ended, Cunnel glanced at her. You saw that? Yes, Amara replied evenly. He laughed. Good publicity, right? She nodded slowly. Very good, but something in her eyes dimmed. As Bello Global Industries expanded globally, Cunnel's ego expanded with it. He began to see Amara's quiet presence not as support, but as a reminder of a version of himself he wanted to forget. The broke man who needed help, the dreamer who once doubted himself. Her calm confidence irritated him. Her silence made him uncomfortable. Her intelligence threatened the image he was now selling to the world. You don't need to be involved in everything anymore, he told her one afternoon. Enjoy the benefits. Travel. Shop. Relax. Amara looked at him carefully. Is that what you think I did all these years? I'm just saying, he shrugged. The company has outgrown old arrangements. Old arrangements. That night, Amara lay awake long after Cunnel fell asleep, staring at the ceiling. She felt the distance growing, not loud, not dramatic, but cold and deliberate. And then came Lola Adeyemi. Lola entered Cunnel's world like a spark in dry grass. She was everything Amara was not loud about: flashy, bold, unapologetically ambitious. She wore bright colors, high heels that clicked confidently on marble floors, and laughter that demanded attention. Cunnel met her at an international business mixer in Dubai. "You don't look like the typical CEO," Lola said boldly, sipping her drink. Cunnel smiled, intrigued. "And what does a CEO look like?" "Older," she replied without apology. "More tired. Less dangerous." He laughed loudly. "I like you." Lola liked that he was powerful. She liked the stories, the wealth, the way people treated him like royalty. She listened eagerly as he spoke about his rise, nodding dramatically at every word. "You built all this yourself?" she asked, eyes wide. "Yes," Cunnel said smoothly. "From scratch." She leaned closer. "That's incredibly sexy." With Lola, Cunnel felt admired without question. She didn't remind him of debts or sacrifices. She didn't know the nights he almost quit. She only saw the king, not the struggle. Their meetings started as business discussions. Coffee turned into dinners. Dinners turned into hotel rooms. Cunnel told himself lies he found easy to believe. "It's just stress," he thought. "I deserve this. Amara wouldn't understand my world anymore." At home, his excuses multiplied. "I have a late meeting. I'm flying out tonight. The board needs me." Amara noticed the pattern immediately. She noticed the new cologne, the sudden secrecy with his phone, the way he no longer looked her in the eyes when speaking. One evening, she asked gently, "Are you happy, Cunnel?" He hesitated, then forced a smile. "Of course. Why would you ask that?" "You feel far away," she said simply. He sighed dramatically. "You worry too much. This is what success looks like." Meanwhile, Lola became bolder. "Why does your wife still act like she owns you?" Lola asked one night, lying beside him. Cunnel frowned. "She supported me when I had nothing." Lola scoffed. "And? Does that mean she gets to control you forever?" Her words settled deep into his thoughts. Soon, Cunnel began confiding in Lola, twisting the truth to suit his pride. "She never really believed in the scale of my vision," he claimed. "She likes playing small. She wouldn't survive this level of pressure." Lola listened, validating every lie. "You've outgrown her," she said softly. "And that's okay." At the office, Cunnel started making decisions without consulting Amara. He stopped sharing financial reports. He moved meetings to times he knew she wouldn't attend. "She's not involved anymore," he told senior staff. "Direct all matters to me." And then, without warning, Lola began appearing more frequently. First as a consultant, then as a familiar face strolling confidently through executive floors. Employees whispered. Some avoided eye contact. Others watched quietly, waiting to see what would happen when the truth surfaced. One afternoon, Cunnel stood before the mirror in his office, adjusting his tie as Lola sat on the couch, legs crossed. "You know," she said casually, "a man like you shouldn't be hiding." Cunnel smirked. "Hiding from what?" "From living the life you deserve." He looked at his reflection. Powerful, admired, untouchable. And for the first time, he felt bold enough to believe that the past no longer mattered. At home, Amara sat alone at the dining table one evening, staring at a cup of untouched tea. The silence in the house was heavier than noise. She didn't cry. She didn't confront. She observed. And she remembered everything. The sacrifices, the documents, the numbers, the foundations no one saw. Outside, Bello Global Industries continued to rise. Inside, the cracks were spreading, quietly, dangerously, and the stage was being set for a moment that would change everything. The morning Amara decided to visit Cunnel's office, she did not wake up with suspicion or anger. She woke up with hope. It was their wedding anniversary. She stood before the mirror, adjusting her simple cream dress, the kind she used to wear when Bello Global Industries was still small and dreams were fragile. She smiled faintly at her reflection. "Let me surprise him," she murmured. Amara had never been the kind of wife who showed up unannounced. In the early days, she stayed away because Cunnel wanted to appear confident and independent in front of partners. Later, she stayed away because he subtly pushed her out of that world. Still, that morning, something told her to go. Not fear, not jealousy, just instinct. She picked up a small gift box from the dresser, an elegant watch engraved with the words "still building together." Then she headed out. The headquarters of Bello Global Industries stood tall and proud in the heart of the city, glass walls reflecting sunlight like a monument to ambition. As Amara stepped out of her car, security straightened instantly. "Good morning, Ma," one guard greeted, unsure. "Good morning," she replied warmly. "I'm here to see my husband." There was a brief hesitation, then a nod. "Of course. You can go in." Inside, the building buzzed with activity. Employees moved briskly, heels clicking, phones ringing, voices low and professional. Amara noticed something immediately. People were staring, not with warmth, not with respect, but with surprise. And something else, discomfort. A young receptionist blinked when she saw Amara. "Good morning, Ma. Do you have an appointment?" Amara smiled politely. "No, I'm just here to see Cunnel." The receptionist swallowed. He's in a meeting." "That's fine," Amara said gently. "I'll wait in his office." The girl hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Yes, Ma." As the elevator rose to the executive floor, Amara felt a strange tightness in her chest. The doors opened to a quiet hallway lined with framed magazine covers. Cunnel's face smiling confidently from each one. Self-made CEO breaks global barriers. Cunnel Bello, the man who built an empire alone. Amara read them without expression. She walked toward Cunnel's office door. It was slightly open. At first, she heard laughter. A woman's laughter, carefree, bold, unfamiliar. Amara slowed her steps. Then she saw her. A woman sat in Cunnel's executive chair like she owned it. Her legs were stretched comfortably across the polished desk, red heels resting on expensive wood without apology. She was flipping through files casually, chewing gum, her manicured nails tapping rhythmically. Amara stopped breathing. The woman looked up and noticed her standing there. Instead of standing or looking startled, she smiled slowly, confident, amused, almost triumphant. "Can I help you?" the woman asked coolly. Amara stepped fully into the office, her posture straight, her voice calm. "I'm looking for my husband." The woman laughed lightly. "Oh, you must be Amara." Amara's fingers tightened around the gift box. "And you are?" The woman leaned back further into the chair, crossing her legs. "Lola Adeyemi." Amara nodded once. "Nice to meet you." Lola raised an eyebrow. "Is it?" The silence that followed was loud. Amara glanced around the office. Cunnel's desk, Cunnel's awards, Cunnel's view of the city. Everything looked familiar, yet suddenly foreign. "I wasn't expecting visitors today," Lola continued, examining Amara openly. "But I guess surprises are part of life." Amara took a step closer. "Why are you sitting there?" Lola smiled wider, clearly enjoying the moment. "Because this is my office now." Amara blinked once. "Excuse me?" Lola laughed, swinging her legs off the desk and standing up slowly, heels clicking against the floor as she circled the desk like a queen surveying her territory. "Cunnel didn't tell you?" she asked mockingly. "That's unfortunate." "Tell me what?" Amara asked, her voice steady despite the storm rising inside her. "That I'm his mistress," Lola said plainly. "And his future." The word hit like a slap, but Amara did not flinch. Lola continued, enjoying the shock she expected to see but didn't. "And since Cunnel believes in rewarding loyalty," she added sweetly, "he's made me the new CEO of Bello Global Industries." For a brief moment, Amara wondered if she was dreaming. "You're lying," she said quietly. Lola scoffed. "Why would I lie? I gain nothing from you." She walked back to the chair and sat again deliberately, spinning slightly. "This seat suits me, don't you think?" Amara stared at her, searching her face for hesitation. There was none. "Where is my husband?" Amara asked. As if summoned by her words, the office door opened fully. Cunnel walked in. He froze when he saw Amara standing there. For a second, just a second, something flickered across his face. Guilt, fear, or perhaps annoyance. Amara, he said slowly. You're here. Yes, she replied. I came to surprise you. Lola laughed softly. Well, this is awkward. Cunnel sighed and loosened his tie. This isn't the time for this. Amara turned fully toward him. Then explain. He glanced at Lola, then back at Amara. His voice hardened. Everything she said is true. The words fell flat and final. You're having an affair, Amara said, not as a question. Cunnel nodded. Yes. And you made her CEO of the company we built? She continued. I made her CEO of my company, he corrected sharply. Amara looked at him closely, as though seeing him for the first time. Lola stood up again, stepping beside Cunnel, slipping her arm through his confidently. You see, she said smugly, things change. Cunnel didn't pull away. I carried this company when you were nothing, Amara said quietly. Cunnel laughed bitterly. Don't exaggerate. You helped, yes. But let's not pretend I'd still be sleeping in Surelier if I didn't have talent. Lola nodded approvingly. Exactly. Support is not ownership. Amara felt the weight of every sacrifice pressing against her chest, but she refused to let it show. So, this is how it ends? She asked calmly. Disrespect in your office? Cunnel shrugged. You should have stayed in your lane. You were never meant to be part of this world. The room fell silent. Amara slowly placed the gift box on the desk. She did not open it. She did not cry. She did not raise her voice. She simply straightened her dress and looked at them both. Enjoy the chair, she said to Lola. It's more fragile than it looks. Lola laughed. Good riddance. Amara turned and walked out of the office without another word. Heels steady, head held high. Behind her, Cunnel exhaled, unaware that he had just underestimated the one person who knew exactly how the empire beneath him was built. And as the elevator doors closed, Amara's reflection stared back at her, calm, wounded, and quietly calculating. The silence in the executive corridor stretched long after Amara walked away. Inside the office, Cunnel adjusted his cufflinks as if nothing important had just happened. Lola leaned against the desk, smiling with satisfaction. That went well, she said lightly. She didn't even fight. Cunnel scoffed. She knows her place. But the truth was, something about Amara's calm unsettled him. Still, his pride was louder than his conscience. Later that evening, Cunnel returned home unusually early. The house was quiet, too quiet. Amara sat in the living room, her back straight, a folder resting neatly on her lap. She had changed clothes. She looked composed, dangerously so. We need to talk, Cunnel said, dropping his keys. Amara looked up slowly. You've already said enough today. He sighed impatiently and sat opposite her. Let's be clear. What happened today was inevitable. You and we've grown apart. You betrayed me, Amara replied calmly. Cunnel laughed dryly. Betrayed? Amara, don't be dramatic. You helped when I needed it, yes. But that doesn't mean you own my future. She tilted her head slightly. So, my sacrifices expired? You did what any supportive wife would do, he snapped. Stop acting like a martyr. Amara's eyes hardened. Any supportive wife empties her savings? Sells her jewelry? Signs personal guarantees so her husband can secure loans. Cunnel stood up abruptly. Enough. You're stuck in the past. Look around. This life is bigger than you now. She rose slowly to her feet. Then why did you marry me? He hesitated, then shrugged. I needed stability. Belief. You were useful. The word landed with brutal clarity. Amara nodded once. Thank you for finally telling the truth. Lola's laughter echoed in her memory. The executive chair. The careless disrespect. It all made sense now. Not as a shock, but as confirmation. Cunnel grabbed a glass of water. I want this divorce to be simple. Quiet. I'll make sure you're comfortable. Amara smiled faintly. Comfortable? Yes, he said confidently. You'll get a house, money. Enough to live well. Just don't make this messy. She stared at him for a long moment, then reached for her phone. I won't make it messy, she said softly. I'll make it accurate. Cunnel frowned. What does that mean? You'll find out, she replied. The next morning, Amara walked into a law firm known for handling high-stakes corporate divorces. Her posture was calm, her voice steady. I want to file for divorce, she told the senior partner. and I want to present evidence. Over the next several days, Amara became a different kind of busy. Not frantic, not emotional, precise. She retrieved old bank statements, transfers made when Bello Global Industries was nothing but a name on paper. Loan agreements she personally guaranteed. Emails where Cunnell begged her to help just one more time. Receipts for debts she settled quietly to keep the company afloat. She brought out notebooks filled with financial projections in her handwriting. Contracts she negotiated. Investments she approved. This isn't support, the lawyer said after reviewing everything. This is ownership. Amara nodded. That's what I want the court to see. Meanwhile, Cunnell basked in false security. He moved Lola into the mansion without ceremony. She redecorated immediately, replacing neutral tones with bold colors. Your wife never had taste, Lola joked. Cunnell laughed, ignoring the faint unease creeping into his chest. When the divorce papers arrived, he skimmed them casually until he saw the claims. What nonsense is this? He shouted, storming into his lawyer's office. She's claiming major ownership? His lawyer adjusted his glasses. Cunnell, her documentation is extensive. She was just my wife. Cunnell snapped. She didn't run the company. She funded it, the lawyer replied carefully, repeatedly, personally, and she has proof. Cunnell scoffed. She won't dare challenge me in court. But Amara had already dared. On the first day in court, she arrived dressed simply, her hair neatly pulled back. No dramatics, no tears. She greeted no one, sat quietly beside her legal team, and waited. Cunnell arrived with confidence and Lola on his arm. The murmurs in the courtroom followed them. When proceedings began, Amara listened as Cunnell's lawyers painted him as a brilliant entrepreneur who had received spousal encouragement. Then it was Amara's turn. Her lawyer stood and spoke clearly. This case is not about encouragement. It is about capital, risk, and ownership. One by one, the documents were presented. Bank transfers, loan guarantees, investment records, emails. The courtroom shifted. Cunnell's face tightened as his own words appeared on screen. Messages where he admitted he would have failed without Amara's money, where he promised repayment, where he acknowledged her as the backbone of the business. Lola's smile slowly faded. Amara did not look at Cunnell. She stared straight ahead, her expression unreadable. When the judge asked if she wished to speak, Amara stood calmly. I believed in my husband, she said evenly. I believed in the vision of the company. I invested everything I had, not as charity, but as partnership. I did not ask for praise. I only asked for justice. Cunnell laughed bitterly. You stayed behind the scenes by choice. Yes, Amara replied calmly. Because I trusted you. The courtroom went quiet. As proceedings adjourned for the day, Cunnell realized, too late, that the woman he dismissed as irrelevant had walked into battle fully armed. And Amara, leaving the courthouse with steady steps, knew something he didn't yet understand. This was no longer about heartbreak. It was about reclaiming what was built by her hands. The courtroom was packed on the day judgment was to be delivered. Journalists filled the back rows, notebooks ready. Business analysts whispered predictions. Employees of Bello Global Industries sat stiffly, unsure of which future awaited them. Cunnell arrived late, confidence forced onto his face like a poorly fitted mask. Lola followed closely, dressed expensively, chin high, eyes restless. She had stopped smiling days ago. Amara arrived quietly. She wore a plain navy blue dress. No jewelry, no designer labels. She did not come to impress, only to conclude. When the judge entered, the room rose. Silence followed as everyone took their seats again. Papers were adjusted. Throats were cleared. The air felt heavy with consequence. The judge looked down at the case file, thick with documents, evidence, and history. This court has reviewed all submissions, he began calmly. What is before us is not merely a divorce dispute, but a matter of financial truth. Cunnell shifted in his seat. The claimant, Mrs. Amara Bello, the judge continued, has presented overwhelming evidence of direct financial investment, personal guarantees, debt settlements, and strategic involvement that directly enabled the establishment and expansion of Bello Global Industries. Lola's fingers tightened around her handbag. These contributions, the judge said firmly, go far beyond spousal support. They constitute foundational ownership. Connell shook his head slightly. This is ridiculous. Silence, the judge warned. The room stilled again. The respondent, Mr. Cunnell, built visibility and management around the company, the judge acknowledged. However, visibility is not the same as ownership. Amara remained still, hands folded neatly. Therefore, the judge said, lifting his gaze, this court rules that as part of the divorce settlement, full ownership and controlling interest of Bello Global Industries be transferred to Mrs. Amara Bello, effective immediately. For one breathless second, no one moved. Then the courtroom erupted. Gasps, murmurs. Shock rippled through the room like electricity. Connell shot to his feet. That's impossible. That's my company. The judge's gavel struck sharply. Sit down, Mr. Bello. This court has spoken. Lola stood too, her voice sharp with panic. This is a mistake. He promised. Madam, the judge cut in. You have no standing in this matter. Her words died in her throat. Amara closed her eyes briefly, not in relief, not in triumph, but in quiet finality. The empire had returned to its true foundation. Within weeks, the fallout was brutal. Banks froze accounts linked to Cunnell. Investors withdrew from deals he once fronted. Properties registered under Bello Global Industries were reassigned under Amara's authority. Security escorted Cunnell and Lola out of the headquarters they once ruled. Employees watched in stunned silence as Cunnell cleared his desk, the same desk where he had dismissed Amara's sacrifices. Lola screamed in the parking lot. You said this would never happen. Cunnell said nothing. He had no answers left. The mansion they lived in was reclaimed by the company. Lola left within days, her love evaporating as fast as the money. Cunnell's phone stopped ringing. Invitations disappeared. The world that praised him moved on without apology. 2 years passed. Under Amara's leadership, Bello Global Industries didn't just survive, it evolved. She restructured operations, stabilized finances, and expanded into sustainable manufacturing and African-based innovation hubs. The company became a case study in global business schools, not for drama, but for strategic resilience. Amara rarely gave interviews, but when she did, her words were measured. Power doesn't need noise, she once said. It needs structure. Her daughter, Zena, now a confident teenager, attended board meetings during school breaks. Amara didn't shield her from responsibility. She trained her. Leadership is not inheritance, Amara told her one afternoon. It's discipline. Zena listened carefully, absorbing lessons her father never valued. Cunnell, on the other hand, faded quietly into obscurity. The man once called self-made struggled to explain his fall without admitting the truth. He took consulting jobs that never lasted. His name became a warning whispered in business circles. As for Lola, her photographs vanished from social pages. The glamour she chased abandoned her the moment it could no longer feed. One evening, Amara stood in her office now, watching the city lights glow below. Zena sat nearby, reading a financial report. Mom, Zena asked softly, do you ever regret trusting him? Amara considered the question carefully. No, she said at last. Because I trusted with wisdom. He betrayed with pride. She turned back to the window. What I built with my hands could not be stolen, only returned. And in that quiet moment, it was clear. A throne built by sacrifice may be ignored. A throne built by strategy will always stand.